Just like the geologist absorbed in enumerating breaks and folds in rock, the paleontologist, in determining the temporal position of animal forms, risks seeing the past as only a series of monotonous and homogeneous pulsations. The tables show the mammals succeeding the reptiles, and the reptiles the amphibians, just as the Alps succeed the Cimmerian chains, and these the Hercynian mountains. From now on, we can and must free ourselves from such shallow perspectives. What we are dealing with is no longer the creeping sinusoidal curve, but the spiral springing up in a helix. From one zoological layer to the next, something is passed on in successive bursts and never stops growing in the same direction. And it is physically the most essential thing in the celestial body that bears us. There are many transformations other than the vital movement that sound a continuous note beneath the rhythms of the earth. The evolution of simple bodies by the process of radioactivity, the granitic segregation of continents, and perhaps the isolation of internal envelopes within the globe. But since life has separated out at the heart of matter, these various processes have lost the quality of being the supreme event. With the birth of the first albuminoids, which I think are proteins and nucleic acids, the essence of the terrestrial phenomenon has decisively migrated, and it has become concentrated in the film of the biosphere that seemed to be so insignificant. From now on, the axis of geogenesis passes and is prolonged through biogenesis, and this finds its definitive expression in a psychogenesis, which we could also call new or new genesis, from the Greek nous for mind. From an internal perspective, and verified by the ever-increasing harmonies we shall see, these are the different subjects of our science arranged in their true perspective and proportions. Life is at its head. Life is at the head, with the whole of physics subordinate to it. And at the heart of life, to explain its progression, the driving force of a rise of consciousness. The driving force of life. This question has been bitterly debated among naturalists since the knowledge of nature has come to mean understanding evolution. True to its analytical and deterministic methods, biology continues to try to find the principle of life's developments in external stimuli or statistics, in the struggle for survival and natural selection. From this perspective, the animate world would rise, insofar as it really rises at all, only through the automatically regulated sum of its attempts to remain itself. Far be it from me, I repeat here once again, to deny the important, even essential role of this historical play of material forms. Do we not each feel it in ourselves, simply from the fact of being alive? Exterior emergencies or shocks are indispensable to force individuals out of their natural laziness and set routines, and also to periodically break the collective frameworks that imprison them. What would we do without our enemies? It seems that for its creative combinations, life, which is capable of regulating in a supple way the blind movement of molecules within organized bodies, manages also to use the vast reactions born fortuitously in the world among material currents and animate masses. It seems to play with collectivities and events as skillfully as with atoms. But what could that ingenuity and its stimuli do if it were applied to a fundamental inertia? Moreover, as we said before, what would these mechanical energies themselves be at all without some kind of inside to nourish them? Beneath the tangential lies the radial, the impetus of the world revealed by the great thrust of consciousness can only have its ultimate source, and it can only find its explanation for the tendency of its irreversible advance toward a higher psyche, in the existence of some kind of interior principle of movement. How can life really operate freely from inside, while entirely respecting the determinism of the outside? Perhaps someday we will understand this better. In the meantime, as soon as the reality of a fundamental impetus is accepted, the main outlines of the vital phenomenon take on a natural and possible shape. Better still, its very microstructure is clarified. For in addition to the general current of biological evolution, we now see a new way of explaining the advance and particular disposition of its different phyla. Footnote here reads, there inevitably will be those who, in one aspect or another of the following explanation, manage to find the thought too Lamarckian, with exaggerated emphasis on the influence of the inside on the organic arrangement of bodies. But the fact should not be overlooked that I have left a fundamental part in the morphogenic action of instinct, as I understand it here, to the Darwinian play of external forces and chance. Life proceeds not only by strokes of luck, but strokes of luck that are recognized and grasped, that is, psychically selected, as I have shown above. Understood correctly, neo-Lamarckian anti-chance is not merely the negation, but on the contrary, the utilization of Darwinian chance. There is a function of complementarity between the two factors, a symbiosis, one might say. Let me add only that as soon as we allow a place for the fundamental, although seldom observed, distinction between a biology of small and of large complexes, just as we have a physics of the infinitesimal and of the immense, we notice there is reason to separate out two major zones in the unity of the organized world, and to treat them in different ways, with, on the one hand, A, the Lamarckian zone of the very large complexes, above all the human being, where anti-chance visibly predominates, and on the other, B, the Darwinian zone of small complexes, lower living things, where the only way this same anti-chance can still be perceived beneath the veil of chance is by reason or conjecture, that is, indirectly. Back to the main text. It is one thing to observe how, along the same animal lineage, limbs become solid-hoofed, or teeth carnassial, and quite another to understand how this variation could have come about. True, it could have occurred from a mutation on the verticille at the point where the ray was attached. But after that, later modifications along a phylum are so gradual, and the organs they affect are occasionally so stable from the time of the embryo, teeth for example, that in every one of these instances, we definitively have to give up speaking merely of survival of the fittest, or mechanical adaptation to environment and usage. But what then? The more often I have had to confront and deal with this problem, the more firmly convinced I am that when it occurs, we are faced with an effect of psychology, not of external forces. According to our current way of speaking, an animal develops its carnivorous instincts because its molars become sharp, and its paws develop claws. Now, should we not turn this proposition around? In other words, if the tiger has lengthened its fangs and sharpened its nails, might this not be precisely because, according to its lineage, it has received, developed, and transmitted the soul of a carnassial or carnivore? The same would hold for timid running creatures, for swimmers, burrowers, and long flight birds. True, there is some evolution of character, provided that we understand character to mean temperament. At first sight, this kind of explanation makes us think of the scholastic virtues. But if we take a deeper look at it, the explanation becomes increasingly more plausible. Qualities and defects of an individual develop with age. Why, rather, would they not also become phyletically accentuated? And at these dimensions, why, or rather how, could they not react on the organism to model it in their image? Part 3 coming up.